and thought-provoking. Okay, so we have questions. Okay, I hope they're all easy.
So Matt is wondering, can you speak about how you handle geofencing logins and what types of attacks have you seen to circumvent those protections?
Okay, so geofencing is this idea that you cannot be at two places at once, right? So you can't log your phone. You cannot be, let's say, in the US and in Europe at the same time. So you can use geofencing as part of a risk analysis. We do that. We have talked in the past of doing it. It has a lot of challenges for a few reasons. The first one is, depending on your cell phone carrier, the IP addresses, because most of geofencing is based on IP geolocation, would be from a place which is not necessarily close to your home. An example for you would be, I have an American phone. And if I'm in Europe, then for some reason, they still proxy the traffic back to the US. So my phone still appear from an IP perspective from the United States. So it's difficult for any services to know that I'm in Europe, or it gives mixed signal, right? So I think A is very brittle because IP geolocation is not a reliable signal. That's why we keep pushing for two-factor, right? Two-factor is the right answer there. Would solve a lot of problem. If you don't have it yet, geofencing can be useful. There are a lot of underground market where they would sell you what they call residential proxy. People like Dyn DNS had done a lot of work on that to show that there is a lot of market for that, right? So you could rent a proxy from cyber criminal to be in a specific city, and the most high-end one would tell you exactly, you could choose even the carrier, right? So if they want to impersonate someone and they have some idea of where the person might be, and when they do phishing kits, and as we wrote about, they do collect your geo IP and they collect some of the signal of where you come from, so they have idea of what type of environment you need, they would actually do that. So signal geofencing might be very useful for a password washing attack or very large scale attacks. However, for the phishing and anything which is somewhat manual, it's not going to be that efficient. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I believe so. And so where do you see your next steps with this project? Where do you see it going next?
It's a good question.
Or perhaps what vulnerabilities do you seek in the future to come, and how do you plan on attending to those?
Yeah, we don't, it's interesting, right? Anti-abuse is a little bit different from security. We tend to clump them together and they become more and more important in the field compared to the previous one. However, they are very different in nature, as we don't see them as vulnerability, but more like a decision trade-off, right? It's like when you have an exploit, it works or it doesn't work, or when you have crypto, it's decrypted or not decrypted. For abuse, it's like maybe. We tend to joke that security is 0, 1, and abuse is everything between 0 and 1. And I think it's very, very, account security will always be a cat and mouse game, right? And I think that's one of the struggle, or one of the reasons why people might not want to have like an account system or login system, and why SSO is so popular, right? Is because ultimately you don't want to invest every week on something which is really, really hard to measure. If you do it, you have to, as I mentioned. And so people adapt, right? I think one of the big change we saw, and I did mention it into the talk, maybe not as precisely as I could, we had a lot of phishing, and then as people get better and clumping on phishing and detecting it and educating people, then bad guys reverted to keylogger, right? So they shifting TTP. It was malware as a services, like a browser compromise, drop thing on the browsers, and they moved to phishing, and then now they moved back to keylogger, which were not that popular a few years back, but now they want to steal cookies, they want to have direct access to the computer. So we push them to do more sophisticated things, and they will go to the easiest way to get access to account. it is a very, very massive business for certain organization to compromise account. There is a lot of money made, so they are doing this. And I think another thing we have problem with is post-session hacking or willing hijacking. Like for example, a lot of tech support scam, right? I mean, everyone heard about this idea of like people call you and say, "Hey, your Windows is expired. You need to connect, and now you need to send money." And people willingly install like a remote access tool, and then that's the end of it, right? And then that's end game. I mean, there is a ton of videos and a ton of research on that. So yeah, I think it's going to people are going to keep trying to scam other people. That's the nature of the world.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean,
No,
it was a great talk. I mean, it was very interesting learning about the different ways you secure those accounts. But with that, we're going to wrap up. Do you have any final comments for us or anything to leave us with?
No, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the invitation. As I said, I made the slide available and the video on YouTube. Hopefully, we'll post that one so it's easier for people to watch. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. I would have rather, I said, do a live talk, but wanted to be sure I was in good shape to do it. I didn't know. So thank you so much. And hopefully you have a great and other talk, which all look very exciting. So really looking forward to the next talk.
Thank you. All right.